Today, we stand as witnesses to an international order mired in crisis and uncertainty, swept by the tides of major power rivalry, strained by geo-economic pressures, and increasingly challenged by non-traditional security issues. These are not unfamiliar to us, but their impact, especially here in Southeast Asia, has never been so acutely felt. It has compelled us to reassess our strategic outlooks, revisit our national priorities, and navigate the growing complexities of our relationship. We find ourselves at a pivotal juncture. Will we remain bystanders as the world reconfigures itself, or will we choose to be agents of change? Do we reassess long-standing alliances or friendships, or do we reaffirm multilateral cooperation in the service of humanity? Now, ASEAN has laid a solid foundation that has guided us through disputes and crises, be it sovereignty and border issues, the scourge of pandemics, or climate disasters. It has anchored our economic integration through initiatives like the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership and in the coming future, the Digital Economic Framework Agreement. We will continue to place our trust in ASEAN's founding principles and its enduring potential. But we must go further in strengthening our collective resolve. And I am fortunate to chair with establishing excellent relations with the King, President, and Prime Ministers throughout ASEAN. The most contentious issues, even in Myanmar, when I decided to meet both the SEC Prime Minister, Senior General, and also NUG Prime Minister, when I engaged our leaders, there was immediately some consensus. Immediate peace, ceasefire, and unrestrained humanitarian assistance. So through Excellencies, Ambassadors, and Commissioners, may I express my profound thanks. I would not be able to do this without their total support and trust. And this is something which I consider a remarkable feat in terms of bilateral and international relations. I'm leaving now to Johor, and I've often reiterated this point, that it's hardly any country that I know of, or in terms of bilateral relations, where you have two countries based on trust and commitment to uplift the living conditions of both countries, establish that joint Johor-Singapore Economic Zone. And similarly, with the border with Thailand, we're working relentlessly to forge its new understanding, economic relationship, to ensure that the poorer provinces in the south and of Thailand and the poorer provinces in the north of Malaya can work together to build this economic relationship that could propel growth and therefore resolve some of the outstanding issues. So we still continue to have border disputes. I'm not highlighting too much about Cambodia, Thailand now, because as you know, Malaysia is a maritime country. We have border issues with all countries. But that has not stopped us from focusing on our priorities, excellent bilateral relations, peace and security, and working together in all issues, economic, cultural, political, educational, and I think that should be the way forward. So Malaysia, in that sense, is fortunate. When we assume the ASEAN chairmanship this year, we were able to explore and expand this horizon. But this year, is, of course, a year of significance, not only for our region, but our shared hopes and aspirations. Now, as agents of change, our role must not merely reflect ASEAN's values, but we must attempt to shape them. We must confront the hard truth about our regional architecture, renew our commitment to shared responsibilities, and strengthen cooperation beyond just rhetoric. We are preparing for a world wrought with challenges and must enhance regional integration. With due respect to the American ambassador, I still use enhance and not enhance. No, this standard joke I have with Ambassador Kagan, because when I used to teach Georgetown, and every time I say enhance, they would smile. It sounds, exciting to the students. Because we say enhance or water, please, they will correct my English. They say enhance, sir, and water, please. Oh, not easy to deal with these American guys. Now, so the challenge must be to enhance regional integration, develop additional economic ties, and tap future catalysts of growth, including digital transformation, the exponential surge of artificial intelligence, and energy transition. And again, during the last ASEAN meeting with Vietnam, and I understand Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and Singapore were able to decide and forge through this ASEAN power grid. Phenomenal feat and progress in terms of having this alternative energy and the ASEAN power grid. Now, we are working again towards upgrading existing trade agreements among member states and dialogue partners. And I've said this repeatedly. Our strength is to secure peace and understanding. Our limitation is the lack of intra-ASEAN trade and joint investments, which now has been the new focus of ASEAN leaders. And more so, in the face of rising protectionism, we must remind ourselves that trade is not a sideshow of security. It is part of the scaffolding that holds the region together. When trade falters, fractures flow. To the resounding success of the ASEAN GCC China summit last month demonstrates not just ASEAN's convening power, but also our keen focus on leveraging economic synergies and building institutional collaboration. The conclusion of the Digital Economic Framework Agreement will unlock the enormous potential of the region's digital economy. More importantly, the increased intra-regional connectivity will open up new opportunities for local businesses to expand their reach across the region. As the world moves toward embracing a greener, more sustainable economy, ASEAN must continue to adopt to better leverage on opportunities and partnerships. We are doubling down on energy transition and better practices, such as the development of sustainable investment guidelines and the ASEAN power grid. Beyond its economic potential, sustainable development is an urgent task because of the adverse impacts of climate change towards people's livelihoods. A truly people-centered ASEAN can only be achieved with a greener and more resilient region. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there are other specters looming around us: great power, rivalry, gross inequality in countries and in the region, transnational crime, and territorial disputes. The path ahead is to close ranks and act in unison in facing these challenges so that they do not weaken ASEAN as a bloc. As we reflect on these lingering challenges, one which a lasting solution remains elusive is the civil war in Myanmar. Now, Malaysia deems it a profound responsibility to mobilize every viable ASEAN mechanism and cooperate with all partners towards the de-escalation of violence and further down the road, a Myanmar-led and Myanmar-owned peace process. Now, the recent earthquake in Myanmar is a stark reminder that natural disasters do not wait for the semblance of stability where they strike. This was not just another humanitarian crisis, it was a moral test for all of us in the region. And it was a remarkable feat when you have Thailand moving immediately to support. We have the Smart Team Singapore, among the first to reach there. We have Malaysia with its military field hospital set up in the region. And we have all countries, Philippines, Vietnam, all coming to the fore without even having to engage and plan and coordinate. We just move with such speed. And again, I'm proud to see that, you know, ASEAN has grown and mature enough going there, but still giving that consistent message. No compromise, but must be a ceasefire. No compromise by humanitarian assistance without discrimination. And passing this message, begin inclusive dialogue with all parties. Now, our actions, therefore, must go beyond the transactional. It must be transformative. And so I continue to implore my colleagues, my brothers and sisters, particularly in Myanmar and with ASEAN, to strengthen our collective resolve to work towards a peaceful and resilient Myanmar. Now, our ministers are there in Washington, D.C. You can bring up this tariffs issue with the United States. This morning I received a message from our Minister of MITI and Finance, Second Finance Minister, that the meetings with the Secretary of Commerce, U.S. State Representatives has been excellent. And we always emphasize the need not only to secure what is fair for Malaysia, but we always present the case for ASEAN. And I have urged my colleagues within ASEAN to do likewise. Present the bilateral position, but at the same time emphasize the need for ASEAN to remain a very cohesive and effective bloc. The imposition of unilateral tariffs by the United States is, of course, admittedly, a significant challenge to our nation and the region, as we are deeply plugged into global supply chains. Some may not appreciate the predicament we are facing. 60% of our semiconductor E&E products from Malaysia are exported to the United States. 60%. So you can imagine the concern, not only of government, but Malaysians generally, about the need to secure a fair resolution to this issue. Therefore, we remain consistent in our resolve. And I must emphasize that the ASEAN consensus reached both by the finance ministers and the trade ministers earlier and the foreign ministers, culminating in the final communique by ASEAN leaders. We emphasize the point that the international trade must be governed by transparent rules and legal predictability, not by unilateralism or coercive economic measures. Disruption in trade and supply chain will leave detrimental effects on businesses and hamper economic growth, further impacting efforts toward ensuring the socio-economic well-being of the people. That said, Malaysia will continue to engage constructively with the United States, China, and the European Union, India, and others in advancing our national and regional interests. And let there be no doubt, Malaysia's strategy of active non-alignment is a deliberate and principled framework designed to maximize strategic flexibility, preserve decision-making autonomy, and engage all partners on our terms. Over the past 2 years, Malaysia has reached out to like-minded partners in the Global South to bridge regions, build collective resolve, and promote shared prosperity. Our focus is clear: pragmatic, coordinated, and action-oriented cooperation. It is in this spirit that we have revitalized our pursuit of greater inter-regional connectivity and cooperation. It has been a catalyst not only for our efforts in Global South mobilization, but in encouraging greater coordination with the Global North in this endeavor. The recent reinvigoration of BRICS to include members and partner countries from the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Central Asia, Africa, and South America is the very essence of bridging regions. It is an opportunity to build new partnerships and renew old ones. Malaysia looks forward to collaborating as partner country and finding new avenues of niche area of cooperation. Contrary to reductionist perspectives on why several South Asian countries are engaging in BRICS, it is neither about taking sides nor moving away from the West. It is a manifestation of agency, autonomy, and the trust in sustained cooperation to address shared challenges. Yet again, events in the Middle East have made it patently clear how the tables of diplomacy could be instantly overturned by the fury of calculated violence. The incessant, punitive, and unprovoked Israeli strikes on Iranian territory, undertaken even as crucial talks were underway, are certainly aimed at shattering the possibility of dialogue itself. We are for effective engagement. We are for unconditional peace in the region. Because if we allow actions carried out with utter impunity, violating international law and eroding the norms that hold global order together, we will, of course, have a bleak future for all of us. Therefore, we have to have the courage to call on those with power and influence to speak plainly and act decisively to restrain further escalation. And of course, in Gaza, people do ask me, why do I continue to repeat this? It's a far distant land, but the ramifications here was pervasive, from the urban to the rural areas. The people expect us to voice out, to take steps. Of course, some even call for extreme measures. The most we need to do is, of course, to voice our concerns, to call for sanity to prevail. Because the relentless assault that continues against defenseless population and exacting a toll of human suffering just defies comprehension. You know, the staggering civilian casualties that we see every day, overwhelmingly women and children, demand far more than pious proclamations of concern. They require concerted international action to uphold humanitarian law, secure an immediate ceasefire and ensure the unfettered delivery of aid to those in desperate need. The credibility of the so-called ruled or rules-based order is on trial. And of course, to our west, the unresolved tensions between Pakistan and India remain a delicate fault line. Their future hinges not only on old grievances, but also on present choices, whether to invest in stability or to continue edging towards the cusp of catastrophe. Elsewhere in the Asia-Pacific, the same pressures play out with different scripts. In the Taiwan Straits, the Korean Peninsula, and the South China Sea, familiar flashpoints flicker. And the ASEAN resolve is clear in terms of our strong position against the continued display of arrogance and by the North Korean regime. So here, as ever, we must insist on the primacy of dialogue over disruption, of law over disorder, of restraint over escalation. Malaysia believes the future of this region lies not in hardened blocks of fragile balances, but in a security architecture that is inclusive, predictable, one in which active non-alignment is not merely tolerated, but enabled to thrive. While we do not pretend to be able to reshape the region to fit our ideals, we can act to prevent worse outcomes. Stability is not guaranteed, but neither is chaos inevitable. What we do now, how we manage tensions, balance relationships, and defend our interests will decide how the region weathers the storm ahead. Terima kasih. Thank you.